myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve, Wraith and Mitch and Stu for the professionals. How are you doing, lads?
Good, all very good.
Mate, no bother.
So Stu, you're in Tenerife now. Mitch,
Yeah.
you're back home.
I am in Dubai.
Yeah, but next week we're going to be reuniting you, but not in the
I'll be in
UK.
Dubai.
You'll be in Dubai.
Both in Dubai.
Exactly. And of course, next week, next Sunday, Newcastle United play Manchester City. And we will be looking ahead to that game early next Sunday morning, 9 o'clock UK time, 9 or 10, because I've got to get across to town and the lads have got to get to the boozer. So don't forget, the professionals will be back on Sunday, but it'll be earlier time of 9 o'clock next week. So let's pick the bones out of Newcastle Brighton first, Mitch. I'm positive. I genuinely am positive about that. 2 games, 4 points in the bag, 2 clean sheets. Newcastle United up and running, and performance-wise, not as good as the Forest game. But we were playing Brighton, who, you know, are a pretty decent team. They're at the next level. It's where Newcastle really want to be at. I thought it was a good hard-earned point.
I would totally agree with that, to be honest with you. And I think the other thing it's definitely shown is if those who are making the decisions in the transfer market are watching, we see where we need something extra to move us to that next level. Because I think Brighton are a very well organised, very tactically astute team, and I think we'll match them for the most part all over the pitch. We'll come away with a clean sheet, but I do think we were missing a little sprinkle of X factor in the final third of the pitch. And I think if you think when the substitutions he made, if you could add just that little bit extra quality into those substitutions, I think that game was there for the taking. And that's before I start getting on my high horse about the Callum Wilson decision and the high feet in the area, because that challenge for me is no way is that given on the halfway line. That's only ever going to be given in the box. It's one of these real mysteries at the minute of football for me, is why challenges in the box are held at a different standard to those outside of the area. But that, then again, I'd go on and rant about that, but I won't. I haven't got time for that. But no, I think a hard-fought point. Would I have taken 4 points and 2 clean sheets from the opening 2 games of the season? Oh, yes, of course I would. Every time. No problem at all. So I don't think we could be unhappy. And I think they put a huge effort in on the pitch. I don't see... I can understand why people are a little frustrated, because we are missing that little bit of quality. I think that now stands out as we do need something different to sprinkle into the mix when push comes to shove, to maybe push to that next level.
Stu, good point.
He's gone.
He's gone. Where is he? He's back
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You were in the green room, and
I was
I was busy trying to sort a picture out. But yeah, I didn't realise he'd gone off screen. So look, from your perspective, a good point.
Yeah, it was a good point. We started off well enough, I suppose, and I think Brighton would have been very high off from the result the previous week, although a couple of hours after the Newcastle game that got blown out of the water, didn't it? But it was a great result for them. And we went there, and yeah, we rode but look a couple of times. It was not too dissimilar to when we played West Ham away in that run at the end of, the middle of last season, where we come away with a battling point. And it shows the strength and advance that we've made if we can play not the best football and still come away with a point. And yeah, Nick Pope made a couple of good saves. I think he's always deemed to have a good day from the build-up he received. But it happens. They're going to create chances at home. And like you say, for most part, we contained them pretty well, even when a few players were off the game.
Nick Pope, you mentioned him there. He's had quite a week, bit of a social media star, Mitch, with the Twitter trending situation. But yeah, Stu's pointed out there 2 great saves, which earn Newcastle a point, making the £10 million price tag look a bit of a steal at the moment.
Absolutely, and he's a player who, if he continues in this vein of form, is knocking on Gareth Southgate's door saying, hey, I'm the number 1 going into the World Cup. And if he continues to play like that, there's no reason why he can't. And it, without sounding disrespectful to Burnley, he's got a bigger and better stage with Newcastle United to give him a little bit more weight to do that. I think Southgate is prone to making decisions based on a popularity contest, and therefore I think Pope in Newcastle United's squad has a bit more weight to go on and then be England's number one. And if he plays like that every game, he will be. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, there is no doubt about it, Stu. And I think, the decision that we were talking about, at the start of the season, Dubravka, Pope, who you're going to pick. I think, we can see why, Eddie Howe made it the priority of bringing him in. Great signing. And if he carries on in that kind of form, we'll have no worries.
Yeah, it was a type of signing. I know Eddie Howe's mentioned Kevin Keegan a few times this week alone, but it's a type of signing that Keegan made. He bring in someone who he believed was better than the person that was in that position before. Whether that be the Mick Quinns, the David Kellys, Peacocks, all these ones that were fans' favourites, they all got moved on for the betterment of the club. And these are the sort of decisions he's making. And I think if we're frustrated with the lack of potency, shall we say, up front, at least he's dispelled one rumour that he couldn't manage a team that defends well, because that was what was being levelled at him when we first got him. Look, he got Bournemouth relegated on all these goals conceded. Newcastle's defence is terrible. He's already going one way. So whether he's ignored it or took it on board as a way to focus and push himself further, it's done the trick, because I'm sure we've only conceded in one home game or something. And it was at Liverpool. Other games for about 6 games or something like that. So he's definitely showed the defence up. And by doing that, I honestly believe the midfield has improved it. They've given them more cover. They've been more flexible and been able to come back and less static. And that takes us to a point where it seems since Shelby was left out of the team, the midfield have been a bit more fluid, for want of a better phrase that Mitch uses quite a lot. But they've been going backwards and forwards, putting the energy in, covering, and they're well drilled. So we're frustrated that they haven't got that bit up front. Eddie Howe will be frustrated. The board will be frustrated. But I'm still firmly believe they'll bring at least 2 proper good names in before the window's closed. And I honestly believe that they won't bring someone in just for the sake of bringing someone in, like a la Everton, as we keep pointing out. They are making a lot of strides. There's a lot of frustration all around. But if they show their hands too early now by saying, okay, we'll pay you top dollar, it opens it up for the rest of the window, doesn't it? So I think if they are going to have to pay extra, it'll be nearer the end of the window. With Shelby being out, it's quite obvious that the midfield needs to be bolstered a bit.
Yeah, Mitch, let's get on to the Callum Wilson incident that you mentioned. I thought it should have been allowed. I've got to be perfectly honest. I've watched it back a couple of times now, but I've seen them given and I've seen them disallowed. But seem to make you a bit angry.
Well, it's the kind of, like I said, there seems to be 2 or 3 fouls you see, types of fouls you see, that are never given outside of the box and always given inside of the box. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Why is what happens in the box held to a different standard? It's either a foul or it's not. And I've seen comparisons today comparing, if you remember that challenge on Longstaff that was done, I think, at Burnley, which wasn't given. And then you look at the challenge that Wilson's making, where there's clear there's no contact between the foot and the head, none at all. There's air between them, and therefore one is given, one is not. Well, what's the difference? And if somebody can tell me what the difference is, then I'll be enlightened. And you see it with certain other types of fouls as well, particularly when you. It was heartening today to see in that West Ham game that Antonio was called up for what would have been a fantastic block in American football to open a running lane, but was to clear somebody out to allow somebody to then go on and score a goal, that's a foul. And so that was given for once, but you see times where they're not given. And it's not just about consistency, it's about consistency between referees. It's the kind of thing that frustrates football fans constantly. it's the kind of thing VAR was supposed to be being brought in to help the iron out. And so, in that situation, the referees, Wilson's finished it off, but I think the referee had blown by then, and I think the keeper wasn't sort of in a position to really bother. And so the ball ends up in the back of the net. But really, surely in that situation, the referee should hold his whistle until the end of play, then blow up and say, right, I want that checked on VAR because I think there's a foul in that process. If VAR's not there to do that, what's it there to do? We need to have this level of consistency, not just with one referee, but between the referees, because it's going to creates problems every season. And like I say, there seems to be certain types of challenges that seem to always be given in the box, but never given outside of the box. It's ridiculous, really.
Stu, your thoughts on that? I mean, it would have been the ultimate smash and grab. Me and Lee Major have just been having a bit banter on Twitter about it. He knows that I love the old smash and grab. But yeah, I think it should have stood. Do you?
Absolutely. There was a incident not long before that as well where he could have and should have had a penalty, and it was dismissed as a dive, but the action replay showed that he was fouled. Unlike ESM when he did dive, which more looked like a penalty than the first one. So it's, as Mitch rightly says, if VAR is there for a reason, then use it. If the clear and obvious error in the box is being made on the edge of the box, this is to me what the VAR should be there for. But it's not the VAR's fault. It's you keep saying the same thing. It's the officials using it and choosing when to use it rather than being diplomatic or formatic across the board and saying this is exactly how it should be used. Anything like that, as you say, let the play continue. We'll buzz your ear if it needs to be looked at again. And for the Callum Wilson one, he didn't touch the ball. It doesn't help when the defender goes down holding his head, but he didn't touch his head. There was clear distance, and if these are the rules, then how is anyone ever going to score an overhead kick again? If you can't raise your feet a certain height, it's where do you draw the line with it? It just seems to be we get the short straw too often. That's all.
Look at the volley the Chelsea lad scored in the game earlier on today. How high was his foot off the ground when he plays it and scores that?
But
okay.
That's it. It's inconsistent, but this wouldn't have been a smash and grab because we're only after 15 minutes into something, and we could have had the goal. So we're 1-0 up. The whole game changes. They have to come out more. We can expose them more on the break. We play them at their game because that's how they seem to set up away from home. They do it very well. And I honestly thought for at least the first hour we seemed to match them well. And then whether it was the heat, whether it was substitutions that were made, whether it was the crowd or just a bit more determination, they seemed to take over the game. But again, there was some great tackles getting put in, cleverly timed tackles. Our friend ESM, he tracked back in the first half, didn't he? And I thought he made a fantastic tackle. And I was going to set him up for the game, like give him the confidence, but it didn't badly. But he wasn't the only one who had off day yesterday. As I would say, it was probably Bruno's worst game for us, although he never hid, which is always admirable. He always didn't seem to want the ball, but he seemed to be getting knocked off it a bit too easy. Like the ankle injury he got earlier on was playing on his mind. But I'm happy with the 1-1 draw at Brighton, and let's see what happens when we play next week. It could be a different result.
Yeah, no, it definitely could. The performance from Pope, as I've already said, was great. ASM, though, we've touched on him a few times over the last 12 months. Mitch, his performance was lackluster yesterday, and the dive that he got was booked for was embarrassing. It has to be said. And rumours, and I have to emphasise rumours circulating quite heavily at the moment that Newcastle may look to offload him before the transfer window. Would certainly be interested of offers over 40 million, talk of unrest, etc. But again, I must emphasise it's rumours. It's nothing concrete. This doesn't come from a reliable source. But those kind of rumours seem to be getting, more and more, consistent around him. And it's never great when that happens.
It isn't, and yesterday was very much ESM at his frustrating best. There's no doubt about that. And the minute he got booked, that effectively took himself out of the game for me. It was For me, you might as well have brought him off then. And yes, he did track back, but Brighton really did want to get him isolated one-on-one, and I think that's a tactic that their managers used before. If you remember when we got hammered at home, and he gave away the penalty for the challenge on Lamberty. That's because one of the tactics they were employing from Potter was to isolate the SM one-on-one in his own the final third of the pitch. And he allows that to happen because he doesn't take up the good positions because he's lazy and tracking back sometimes.
So the question I'm going to ask you, Mitch, is about your ways, and it's a question John Askew's put in there. He says, should ASM be left out when we play away from home?
That might be one way to solve the ASM conundrum, is use him as an impact player in away games, perhaps. Don't know. Difficult to know. Look, people are well aware of my opinion on ASM and well aware that there's some stuff I haven't discussed, which I have heard and have heard over a number of, over his entire time at the club. I'm quite sure he's high maintenance. I'm quite sure he needs his tummy tickled, constantly. I'm quite sure he needs to be reassured that he's this and he's that. How does that fit in with the squad? How does the squad cope with that? We're talking about that at pre-season when he was doing his little roly-polies around the pitch and the players on the bench were having a little giggle about it. That's fine, provided it's a positive giggle, provided it's players like, oh, you're right, here we go again, and everybody's on board with that and they can accept it. But if that's part of a little division in the dressing room where players are thinking, Christ, man, will you just pack it in and get on with it and pick yourself up and crack on? That's not the kind of thing that Howe wants in the dressing room. You're right about it's difficult to know where the current lot of rumours are coming from and how trustworthy the sources are, because generally Howe's talked the SM up in the pre-season and made sure that he's states he's an important part of his squad. But if rotating them out in away games is a way to get more value out of them, that might be one way to look at it. But only Eddie Howe's got the final decision on that. Does he have a price? Yes, I think he does. I think everybody has a price. And given how careful they're being with FFP numbers, he's one of the few assets that could go out at a significant amount of money that may make significant incomings possible, which in some ways would be a shame. I've said also I would love nothing more than to see him succeed in every way he really wants to in a black and white shirt, because we'll all win then. You, me, Stu, all the fan base, the club, everybody. It's win all around. But when it's that ASM and everybody can see it and everybody's getting frustrated at him, I don't know what the actual stats were, but I think he gave away the ball 14 or 15 times yesterday, and that's not good enough. At the day that ain't good enough. From somebody like him, we need better end product, and we need something that is that X factor, that game winning difference, and because we were missing that yesterday, and an on form ASM could be that difference. But is the way to get that out of him in a tough away fixture like Brighton? Yeah, maybe to put him on the bench and start him from the bench and bring him on later in the game.
Stu, ASM, again, it's until the transfer window closed, there'll always be speculation. And, I've got to agree. Somebody mentioned it in the chat a little bit earlier there. If you're going to slate ASM, then, you have to, it was trolls. You have to slate Miggy as well, because he's got no end product. But I think the difference between the two is that Miggy runs around, puts a lot of effort in, whereas ASM, he can appear to be shirking at times. Do you know what I mean? And if he chucks it, he chucks it. And it's just that temperamental attitude. It frustrates supporters, I think.
Yeah, that's the type of thing he is. He's a frustrating player, and by saying someone was not playing well is hardly slating them. But I said Bruno didn't play well, Wilson didn't play well. So it's not what we're doing is the pro ASM brigade and turning people in anti-ASM. Again, I'll just resonate what Mitch has just said. If he's on fire and on top form, he's a huge asset at his club. But those games are becoming few and far between now. And if anyone can say the last time he really played well, my opinion would have been Arsenal at home. And the one thing he did then, more times than he's done any game since, he was hitting the byline. Instead of being predictable, coming inside all the time, and then they can just double up. He holds on as long as he can, then say, look, I passed it. I did as I was told. It's like the It's like someone we've all been at school, you know, there's always someone crazy and clever with it and always resisting the teacher's urgings, you know, and wants to sit at the back and throw chewing gum at people and stuff, but he has all the brains in the world. Maxie's that person. He has all the talent in the world, but the performances that he sees and the performances that we see are obviously different. You know, when you're talking about being Ballon d'Or winner and I should be playing for France, there's been a few Newcastle managers now, and I'm sure there's been 2 or 3 French managers in the time he's been a professional footballer. And at the top end, they haven't pushed the boat out on them. And we know there's people expressed interest in signing them, but there's been nothing concrete. That should tell you a bit more about them as well. You know, if we ever indicated that would sell Bruno, then they'd be queuing up. And we mean the top clubs. That's ASM believes that he would be worthy of Grayson. Now, if he does move, it'll be, like you say, it'll be a reserve, like a Richarlison, just like as a backup. Or he's going to have to take a sideways step or even a backward step in his own mind and go to like someone like an Everton or a Leicester or Aston Villa or whoever's willing to take a gamble with him. Or he actually does what he is capable of doing more consistently and thinking, right, if I roll my sleeves up here, if I do what's asked of me, and then I can still do my own thing, I'll have everyone on side. Then I've got the world at my feet. And then all of a sudden, Newcastle become a more attractive attacking proposition because of this man. But we seem to be spending too much talk every week since we started doing this, maybe it's 2 years ago. Oh, let's give him a bit more time. We'll give him to this window. We'll give him to that window. And I don't understand why he gets so much leeway. You know, if like people want to slate Miggy, but sometimes Mitch just says that at least he is putting the graft in, and he's not going to just give up and let people walk past him or point at people. He will put the graft in, but both of them, I believe, at best would be in our squad, not in our starting 11. If we can get these transfers right in the next couple of weeks.
We've got to look at Botman yesterday, Mitch, and wow, impressive stats. Didn't mess about, and obviously Dan Burn ended up at left back because Matt Target had a dead leg. I think there'll be changes again next week. Manchester City, I doubt we'll see Dan Burn playing left back, but it gives Eddie Howe a bit of a headache, and it's a headache which he's had since the start of the season and since he signed Botman, which is, who do you play at centre-half? And I get the impression it could well be horses for courses. I mean, of course, we have injuries. We'll have suspensions over the course of the season. But he'll make a decision next week. I guess he could play 3 centre-halves. He could well go with Burn, Shaw and Botman together. He could play, any one of a combination. But it's an interesting one to have. And Botman certainly looks the player and doesn't look like he needs time to settle in, Mitch.
No, but also it was one of those performances where he just got about his business. He just was efficient and did it. Looked cool, looked calm. Wasn't in your face, constantly named on in the commentary. You know, he just did his stuff and looked good at it. They're the Rolls Royce type of players that sort of come around every now and again, and he has that look of it. And everybody panicking about Burn going out to left back obviously didn't realise how many times he played at left back in the Premier League for Brighton, either left back or even a left wing back. He's played for Brighton there, so I wasn't under too much panic about having him out there. But you're right, I think for Man City that might change significantly. And again, it shows we've got options. We can go to a back 3, we can go to a 4, we can pick any number of combinations in the 4. And you're right, I think you'll take a horses for courses approach to it. That's what we've got the squad for, and I think that's how we'll do it. And isn't it a wonderful, wonderful problem to have, given that we're constantly told how bad Newcastle defences are over the years, and we're now talking about options to slot different players in, and we've started the season with 2 clean sheets and really looked in one game super comfortable, and in the other one, yes, the defence worked hard at it, but they showed they can graft in and nil out, which is fantastic.
Thoughts on Botman and how he played yesterday, Stu?
I thought he was superb. Practically, he didn't make any errors, did he? You know, he's reading off the game, his positional sense, his strength, his passing ability, the measure of the pass as well, the weight of the pass. He seems so composed for someone so young. And I think it'll be difficult to leave him out. So that's the conundrum. Do play Burn with him or keep the left-right balance with Shaw, which I believe is what Eddie Howe favours. And it's going to be unlucky for Dan Burn if Target, I'm sure he'll recover from his dead leg by next weekend. So to me, it's a straight call between Burn and Target is the left back in position, although he missed last yesterday. He is the main left back, isn't he? So the nice thing is, whichever way it goes round, we've got quality there. And we're not like we could have been a couple of weeks or a couple of seasons back playing people out of position, playing right backs at left back, playing midfielders at left back. And now we have proper people. Even our own Paul Dummett, he was on the bench. He could easily have slotted in there as well. Matt Ritchie can play left back if push comes to shove. But again, if we keep the square pegs square holes, Matt Toggett should come back in.
Yeah, no, I think we probably will see that next week. But again, going to be interesting. Manchester City, the champions, coming to town will be a big occasion. Let's give a shout out to the sponsors. Big thank you, as always, to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead, or by telephone on 0191 478 273. Or you can email Darren direct at darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks also to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk or by telephone on 01 768 210 102. Thanks to Away Day Clothing and to Media Arts for all the help with their video side of things. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and on Spotify and other podcast providers. If you want to join, click join underneath the video and you can make a small donation to the channel, or you can become a cult member by going to nufcmatters.com, paying a one-off fee and getting a cup, a pen, a membership card and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. If you've got a smartphone, hit the QR code. It will take you straight there. We also give away free car stickers. If you're a subscriber, just email john@nufcmatters.com to claim it today. We support the food bank on the show as well. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the match day bucket. You can make a virtual donation any day of the week, any day of the year. And don't forget, Peter Beardsley Soccer School is ongoing through August. For further information, visit peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com. And the Callum Wilson shirt is still up for grabs at $2.95 for a ticket. Football prizes are given that away. I'll stick the link in the chat if you want to enter that. Get yourself on there. Okay, let's put up this picture and just ask the question, why are Amanda and Mia Dad at Chelsea today? Obviously, London is their home. They live just across from Hyde Park, and they will be spending a bit of valuable time with their son, I'm sure. But yeah, down there as guests of Chelsea Football Club, are they looking at a couple of players, Mitch?
I think you're more looking at business networking, mate. If you think that they're more than likely the guests of the co-owner of Chelsea, who's the chairman of Clear Lake Capital, who they'll know from the business world. As Stu would tell you, from this part of the world, Iranian business links are very tight, and Iranian businessmen tend to stick very tight and tend to do a lot of business together as well. Add to that, Chelsea seem to be on a charm offensive with the new ownership, trying to get ingratiated with the Premier League. How much that has to do with future Super League and American investment in football aspirations, who could dare say or comment. But if there was a discussion to be made about that, with the backing of PIF, Newcastle United have to be in the discussion, have to be in the equation. They'd be foolish not to, they'd be daft not to when they look at the impact that Live Golf's already had and stirred up the world of golf. Any move like that would involve us. whether that's right or wrong, or whether how we as a fan base would feel about that, that is inevitable. And Chelsea seem to be or Chelsea's new owners are certainly on a big charm offensive. So there's umpteen reasons why they could be there. So there's no point in trying to second guess why they're there. It's a headline that basically says business people who know business people are invited to a corporate event. That's pretty much it, really. Yes, I'm sure there's business to be talked about between the two clubs, but direct chats with Amanda and Mairdad regarding transfer activity, for example, I would have thought with Dan Ashworth in place would be very unlikely. There'd be a way that things are done. But that said, I think it shows how, under new ownership, we are viewed as a very different beast now. You wouldn't see Mike Ashley doing that. You wouldn't have seen Penfold in there in the same way. I think, it shows we've got to definitely pitching at a different level now, and as I say, the simple answer for me is between Mairdad and I can't forget the guy's name who's the chair. Clearly, the Iranian business community is exceptionally tight, and that's exactly the kind of meeting I would expect to see.
Yeah, obviously when cameramen get their lenses, Stu, focused on people in there in the director's box, there's always going to be questions. And I think the fact that Newcastle United fans are eager for incomings, there's always going to be speculation, isn't there, when you see a photograph like that?
Oh, definitely. I think it's a it's a mixture of all. If they were going there for a player, they wouldn't be so high profile with a glass of rosé standing on the balcony where they know the world's cameras are watching. And to be fair, I think this is what Dan Ashworth's been employed to do anyway. So I think it's more the case of alluding to what Mitch has said there. They're back at home, they're in London. Out of the big six that tried to stop us, or the top six, whatever you want to call them, corrupt six, whatever. Chelsea, the first ones to be taken over, so like a change of ownership, and they're the first ones to reach out with the olive branch to us as well. And they can come in totally like trying to make friends and say, look, we weren't part of that. We're new. We understand what your game is. We'd like to be part of that, because they understand the business, that the potential and the wealth behind Newcastle United, there's only one way they're going to be. So if we can make friends rather than enemies with these people, as Chelsea are doing, then it's a charm offensive on their behalf. And if they want to invite them for a free meal and sit and chat to them, then that's fine. But that doesn't mean we'll be signing Kante this week or anyone else like that. We may get a couple of their reserves, but I think that work will be done from Ashworth, the scouting team, Eddie Howe, and maybe even Daniels before he's due in next week, isn't he? So I don't think Amanda and Mairdad are there to sign any players today. Hopefully, I'm wrong. It's a good one.
Yeah, okay. I mean, BT was asking earlier, is there any truth in Newcastle submitting a new offer on Maddison, or is it the usual paper talk? And BT also pointing out that Ramos said that he's at Benfica. He's fine. We're playing well. What matters to me is Benfica. Benfica have said that they've already had a bid from one club, but refused to name which one. And I guess I'll tie that in with John's question, Mitch, which is, hi guys, do you think Newcastle will buy a striker and a right winger before the window shuts? Why can't they buy a striker when Forest are buying players and Newcastle aren't? So again, it's the frustration, Mitch, that we have, from people, and questions galore, which we really can't answer, but we've got an opinion on it.
Look, at both Stu and I would tell you straight away how much tighter and more locked down Newcastle United is than ever right now since Ashworth come in. There are far fewer things leaking out from different places in Newcastle United that used to leak like a sieve, that would reach my ears, that would reach Stu's ears, or reach Hasty's ears, and would sit together on my little WhatsApp group and put our heads together and say, right, well, I've heard this, all right, okay, well, that tallies with something I've got from here, etc., etc., etc. That just ain't happening at all. We're busy sending videos that finish with orgasm noises to each other at the minute. That's how little updates we get these days. But that's the way it should be. It's not how Newcastle United has been. It's been quite an open book, and now it isn't. and that's a good way to be. Do I think there's a third bid for Maddison? I would be amazed if they give up after 2, because it's a player they seem very keen on. Similarly, do I think a striker and a right winger would come in before the end of the window? I said 2 weeks ago on Amigos, I expect we to break our record twice. And I think that's the 2 positions we'll make. And for me, I think yesterday showed that's exactly where we could do with that little bit of extra space. So that would fit in with the plans. Why are Forest spending? Now, I had a little chat on Twitter today about this. And what Forest's new owners are doing is they're taking all of their new income from promotion in the Premier League and sticking it on red and hoping it works and hoping they don't get relegated and hoping that if they do get relegated, there's enough in what they can sell and enough in the parachute payments to just keep them afloat, because they're risking whatever they do this season now with the amount they're spending. They are not going to be able to do that in the next 2 years under the Premiership 3-year window rule. And therefore, they're taking a huge gamble. We could do that. We could blow a lot of money. But everything that we blow in this window screws the next window and the next window and the next window. Now, this is where I would deviate a little bit and say, though, for the right player at the right price, I think our board and management team would blow the structure if the right player became available at the right place and they thought they could get them in. I think there's flexibility there, and I think it's fluidity. But I think there is a general overall plan, and it's not a stingy plan as I've seen some people call it. It's a very well thought through, balanced plan that then allows us to grow as the commercial income grows. Because for all we're well off under Ashley in terms of an FFP point of view from a lack of debt, we're not well off under Ashley from commercial revenues point of view. That's kind of hamstrung a little bit. And so as that grows, we can then start to spend more. What Forest are doing is, in my opinion, folly. They're risking the financial future on the toss of a coin. Will we stay up or will we not? However, this is not a coin toss. That's just a heads or tails. It's heads, tails, but it might land on its side as well. And I think good luck to Forest. But also, people are saying, oh, well, they're buying this and they're buying it. If you look at those players on the board, did any of those Forest players that we played last week look like they would make any headway in our team? Any of them? Nah, they're buying shite. And I would rather we just didn't buy anything than buy somebody for the sake of it. So I think we just got to sit tight on that and trust the process. Like I keep saying, there's still a long way to go in this transfer window yet. And I think there'll be movement towards the end when the money go round proper happens, where things start to shift from Chelsea, from other clubs, and that'll start a process and we'll be in that mix.
Yeah, I agree. Stu, your thoughts on the ongoing transfer? I can't wait till it's shut, by the way.
I honestly believe we'll get at least 2 more signings. I think we'll get a midfielder, a backup for Wilson, a young backup, because that's obviously the type of player that they're targeting. And the winger, whether that's a right winger or a left winger, will depend on outgoings and incomings from other teams as well. But we're talking about teams spending money, silly like Forest and stuff like that. I don't think we see Forest as a threat. But if you look at the top 6, they've all seem to have been dipping their hands in their pockets, but some have done it more astutely. Man City, look what the 2 that they got in, Calvin Phillips, who I would love to have had at Newcastle. I think he would have solved a lot of our problems or questions anyway. Holland, they've got those 2 for, I believe, 100 million, but they've got the same, or just about the same money back for Zinchenko going out and Jesus going out and Sterling. In fact, they've got more getting rid of Sterling. They've upgraded, but they've used their money to benefit their effect with financial fair play. So we've got lots of things that we can look at with regard to financial fair play. But if you look at Man United, nobody spent more money than them on transfers since Alex Ferguson left. Nobody. And yet the fans are still blaming the board. Yeah, they take money out, but they see it as a business. But they haven't been shy in putting money in on players, have they? You know, they've got like Maguire at 80 million, Sancho was roughly the same. So they've spent fortunes. They've just been mismanaged at the top and that's on field level. And this is something that our owners aren't doing. They're making astute recruitment, and this is why Murdad's talking about the skyscraper. You've got to build the foundations, and he's done that. Anyhow, I believe we'll be pushing and pushing and pushing to get the right players in. And I've always said from the start of the transfer window, I think we could break it twice. It just depends on which order the signings covered. So it may just be once because the other one would have broken the transfer record, but not as high as the first one.
At Swiss Ramble on Twitter is a good place to look, isn't it, Stu? I'm sure you've read it,
Yeah,
Mitch.
yeah.
I'm sure you've read it. If you don't understand financial fair play and how it affects Newcastle United's current state of play, follow at Swiss Ramble on Twitter. What I'll probably do is I'll probably go through this with Ben Jacobs, and I promise we would do that with Ben. But it's well worth a read, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All of them.
Everything he does is spot on and very well considered and thought through and accurate, and he's a great source. If you really want somebody to break down how football finances work in a wonderful noddy style fashion, he's the man to go and have a look at because it is useful.
Mm-hmm. Yano says this. I've heard comments on how saying he doesn't want to lose any players because he's only got 21. We've got 27 players. What's your thoughts, Mitch?
Very interesting. Depends on what he sees as viable players, doesn't it? Has he already written a few off in his head? Is it, we're just waiting for some outgoings to happen that we don't know are already lined up? Let's see.
Yeah, you can't get rid of everyone, can you?
No, you can't.
No.
People know that you need to get players in, and that's where the price goes up again on top of the Newcastle tax. But he's probably looking at 21 fit players from the squad that he wants, which indicates there's room for 3 or 4 more, doesn't it? Again, Elliott won't count as part of that, young Elliott Anderson. So you've got people like Jamal Lewis, is he coming back? Is he not coming back? Is he a few weeks away? I don't think Shelby should be named in the 25-man squad. What's the point? By the time he's fit again, he might play 1 game for us. And if he's been out for so long, you're going to throw him into just the first game, which would be the Leeds if the timetable or time scale is right for his injury. That squad players could be better used with the new recruit. I still believe we're going to get Paqueta, and I don't know why I'm so strong in belief of that. I still think we'll get Tillemans as well, and I also think we can get a winger of that young player. So that could be the 3 or 4 that's been alluded to by the manager. But
I know.
There's 27. You've got Freddy Fernandez. He's not going to be playing, is he?
Aye.
And he's got a squad place.
Mm.
Matt Ritchie, now, we know he wants to go to the South Coast, and he'll stay. If he's saying, just stay till the January window, mate, just do us a favour, he would do that. But if we can get a better player in, then he'd be gone. So it's the ruthless thing that we've talked about quite a few times, but we've just got to make sure that when we are bringing people in, they will improve the squad. And I've got no doubt at all that's exactly what the recruitment team are doing.
Been a bit of this.
I know the young striker at Marseille was left out of their squad today. That would be linked with, so it would suggest. I think the press reports from France said there's two Premiership clubs got bids in for him, so there's another one that would be linked with. That looks like he's on the verge of a move, so let's see how that unfolds.
Yeah, a lot of this chatter on Twitter about Anderson again. Should Anderson be preferred as a sub to the likes of Murphy and Longstaff? Is there a fear he might be restricted to a few minutes here or a few minutes there, Mitch? I mean, I've seen a lot of people saying that he should be ahead of Murphy.
2 games into the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long season. We cannot have everything all at once. And in the situation we were in yesterday, what if he'd stuck him on and he tried to do something clever, give the ball away, and that led to conceding a goal? And then everybody's on his back. What did they put him on for? Should have been somebody with more experience. Can it win? Can it win? Trust the manager. Trust what he's doing with his squad. If Elliott Anderson stays at Newcastle United, he's staying because I'm quite sure Howe wants him to develop under his own way and under his wing, and he'll use him appropriately in appropriate games. He's 19-year-old. He's had a great season in League One. One step at a time, everybody. Just chill. we seem to be becoming a very impatient fan base over everything. It's got to happen now, tomorrow, instantly. And actually, if everybody's interested in the final destination, you're going to miss the journey, and it's the journey you should be enjoying. And I think with Anderson, I'm quite sure he'll get plenty of minutes if he stays and he doesn't go out on loan somewhere. That's absolutely fantastic. I've got no doubt he will. Because I gather on in the training pitch he's pulling up trees, which is great. If he keeps doing that, he'll force his way in.
Yeah.
Everybody's shown that under Eddie Howe, if you perform well and you perform well in training and you're performing the way that he wants you to, he will give you a chance eventually. So I think everybody needs to just take a chill pill on that one.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Mitch. And Stu, I mean, what Mitch says is right. Just give it. He'll get his chance, and when he gets his chance, he'll have to take it.
No, he will, but we don't want to ruin him either. And he's got a long career ahead of him. And I was one of those people that would have liked him come off the bench yesterday, but probably after about 30 minutes, I thought he should have been on the pitch. But anyhow, he'll blend him in. He's already told them that he's staying. He's not going to loan him out. He's going to be part of the squad. He wants him in around, even if that's only till January. So he knows he feels wanted. And as we've been informed that he's performing exceptionally well in training. He's doing everything right. But it's not just like one bad game, you lose your position, or one good game, that's your team, that's your position forever. The lad's going to have to learn the style of play, the role that's required to play that. He's going to have to. It's easier sometimes to watch at pitch level, when we're in the stands watching, but as the manager sees it, he can be sitting there listening to how the managers and coaches are talking about positional awareness and stuff like that. And it's all about learning all the time. And when he does come on, I'm sure what we don't need is too much expectancy on him. And I think he'll be more comfortable by training with the first team, and he'd be more natural in with the banter and stuff like that. Once he does get his head, I think he'd be hard to keep out the team as well, because he does look like an exceptional talent.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it for me. He will make it, and I hope they do what Manchester City did with Foden, give him the opportunity to grow. Lots of people do want us to talk a little bit about Man United. Wow, talk about a club in self-destruct mode, Mitch. I mean, they were our rivals in the 90s, pipped us to the league in that infamous season, of course. And the reports, obviously, you have to double check this, but it coming from reliable sources and being quoted by Sky News, of all places, Sky Sports News, that Manchester United are considering to cancel Ronaldo's contract. I mean, this is bizarre, isn't it, in the world of football?
That would be quite an interesting situation if they were to resort to that. There's been a suggestion for a while that Ronaldo ruins dressing rooms everywhere he goes. And he'll score you 20 goals a season, but might actually then destroy your squad that could have got 40 or 50 goals that season. And that seems to be what they're hinting at here. What I witnessed yesterday, oh, by the way, Stu, I bumped into Gareth yesterday evening after. Yes, he was in that. This is a Brentford supporting friend of ours out here. And all I could get out of him was, yeah, we won 4-0, It was just, he'd had a few celebratory gentleman's beers afterwards, and he was, high as a kite, and why the hell not? What a shambles, top to bottom, that entire club looks right now. And what I'm really enjoying at the minute is the collective lack of sympathy the football family seems to have for Man United fans at the moment. It's quite amusing. I saw one particular quote on Twitter today saying to some Man United fan who was really woes me in about a terrible decade that they've had, saying, well, hold on a minute, do you want to look at Newcastle? Do you want to look at Villa? Do you want to look at Leeds? Do you want to look at, so many teams who've, had all sorts going on where you've been enjoying Champions League football and other things, and I think they're showing their colours as a fan base is every bit the things that we've been accused of in the past. I think the club's suffering from having, and I think it's quite clear, this is the whole concern I would have in terms of the amount of American ownership creeping into the game is that American owners really genuinely don't understand the world of football and don't understand how to make it work, particularly with a vehicle like Man United, where they're still able, even though for a club like them, they probably have been underperforming for the last 10 years, they're still taking massive dividends out of it and lining their pockets with it. And that's all they see in terms of, at the end of the day, their success, as long as they can do that. They've not had necessarily the best football people in place running the club. They've had accountants running the club. We know all about what happens when accountants end up running the club. We had one sat in our chairman's office for the thick end of 10 years, and look what, we're great top of the balance sheet league, but it didn't do much for the club, did it? It took away its heart and soul, and that's what we're getting back now. And so I don't have much sympathy for some of the Man U fans that I'm seeing whinging at the minute, but at the same time, the end result always is about what happens on the green stuff. And yesterday, Man United were pretty awful.
Like Stu, I mean, it's definitely a case of let's all laugh at Man U at the minute.
Yeah, well, I had a conversation with the same lad that Mitch was talking about there, Gareth, the Brentford fan. And I was sitting with him when Brentford won to get into the playoff final, and I think the week after when they got promoted. So I said to him last night, you must be in dreamland thumping Man United 4-0. Now, his reply to me gives an indication of how far Man United have fallen, because we beat Man United 5-0 20-odd years ago, and we're still talking about it, because they were the great team. And he says, it was fantastic beating them, but I half expected to win, but not by 4. But he also then said, I said, but it's got to be your proudest moment back in the Premier League. He went, no. He says that was when we just equalised against Liverpool 3-3, and then we went straight on the attack again. And he says that was my little Brentford playing one of the top teams. They don't see Man United as the top team now. It's only the media that do. Yes, revenue-wise, they'll still coin it in for the foreseeable future. But they're full of bad decisions. And this is why I know we had our WhatsApp group across here in Tenerife. I was speaking to an old friend of mine who was a bookie, and I was telling him Newcastle 9-4 to finish in the top 6. And he went, oh, no chance. So after a couple of beers, I managed to persuade him to give us 3-1 for it. And the way I look at that, that's 3-1 for us to finish above Man United. As long as we win our own little league off the Aston Villas, Leicesters, Wolves, which I'm sure we're more than capable of, even with the squad we've got. Can we beat Man United at this season to finish at least 6? Absolutely, we can. So I put some money on, and Keith did as well. I believe Keith was the one that said he wanted to do it. So that's where Man United are. They're just there to be laughed at the moment, and long may it continue, because we all remember the great Liverpool team of the 80s. And then they went through a little mid-90s when we were on our ascendancy. They went down a bit. But they kept their heads down, didn't they? And they didn't moan as much as what Man United fans are doing now. And I think you've got to look at the fan bases and think, right, they deserve more respect, because they were in the doldrums for a good 10 years, Liverpool, and they've eventually clawed their way back up to the top. But again, everything changes in football. It's cyclic, isn't it? You've got Salah, Marley's already gone, the midfield's creaking. Are Liverpool the force that they used to be, or they're there to be got it? And it just needs a new, young, attacking, vibrant team that all on 300, 400 grand a week like the Man United players. And that's the problem. They've all got so much. They've got nothing to push for now. They're all on the best contracts they'll ever be in their life, and subconsciously and mentally they're relaxed. Where our hungry team will finish above them, and that'll be a few hundred quid better off at the end of the season.
Yeah, Phil Luke says there's a serious culture problem at Man United that don't have any direction, and there are clear factions within the club. And there's a lot to be said about team morale. And I mean, that's what we've got. You know what I mean? I know some people don't like the team photos, but Newcastle win 2-0 at home against Notts Forest. And, everybody, subs, kit man, security, manager, are all in these team photographs. And that's what it takes, and Manchester United are a million miles away from that at the moment. And you blame Ronaldo all you want, but there's other people in that dressing room. I think you probably need to take up some responsibility. Lee Major says, I've been on to Rio Ferdinand to set up a GoFundMe page so the supporters can buy the club. Yes, he got a bit of stick, and Lee Major Very funny. He says, I've got a 66-1 double. Ryan Giggs and Man United to both go down. Caretaker reveling in the fact that it took us till October, to get 4 points last season. We've got 4 points in the bag now, which is very, very true. We've got to be positive. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, and we covered this a little bit on the Amigos, but Stu obviously doesn't do the Amigos on a Friday. So I'm going to come to you, Stu. Keegan, and Eddie Howe going and looking at the past and talking about, days gone by, showing videos to the players, and talk about bringing Keegan in, into the club. What's your views on that?
I think it's a marvellous idea. And if Eddie Howe's tapping into that and Keegan's all for it, then we as a fan base will only benefit from it. The guy is a Pied Piper. Even now he's in his 70s. I can guarantee he could still do a rousing speech in front of any audience and convince them that he was right all along. And someone like that, Eddie Howe probably grew up watching that team and trying to replicate it. And if you're not asking the right man or the exact man for help, then you're missing a trick. Because I believe he would very happily be involved with Newcastle again, now that Mike Ashley's not involved. And this could be setting the path for some sort of ambassadorial role, possibly. Bring him in, getting to know the players, meet the chairman, meet the directors, etc. And you couldn't think of someone better. I honestly couldn't. And if anyhow, we'll learn from him how to get the balance right, because that's something that Keegan didn't do at the end. So I think I will have to be his own headstrong person, but take all the positives out of it. You can't get enough of good news, and that's what Kevin Keegan and his charisma does. He brings good news to the club. He brings the feel-good factor, and I'm sure after whoever he spoke to the walk away, go, wow, he really loves this club, and that's the sort of message we need to get across to people. So it's fantastic that he's speaking to Kevin Keegan.
Yeah, great stuff. Mitch, we covered this on Friday, but it's what you want. We all want, Kevin Keegan to play some part, an ambassadorial role, going around the globe, preaching, to businessmen and, to commercial partners, potential commercial partners about what Newcastle means, what it's all about, what a vibrant city it is, one city club, and a club on the up. I couldn't think of anybody better. But even if that's not going to happen, then it's just a case of him, coming into the club one day, coming to the training ground and giving one of those, unique talks that Kevin can give would certainly just lift, would give such a lift to the place.
You listen to any of the anecdotes from any of the players who played under Keegan, from, Rob Lee being convinced that Newcastle was closer to London than Middlesbrough. Some of the tales that Steve Howie cracks on about, some of the tales from Bez, some of the all of these things. He's an individual that players seem to be unable to be anything other than inspired by, and you need that around the dressing room. You need that in the club. I would love to hear an open speech from him, which starts along the lines of "I told you so," referring back to that quote he made about him not coming back to the club until Ashley's gone, and when Ashley's gone, we'll get our club back, because he was right.
Yeah.
And I think that would segue nicely and bookend everything for him in his journey with Newcastle United, to bring him back on the back of that. I was right, and I'm back for you lot, and I'm back for the spirit in this club and city. And I think the players couldn't fail to be inspired by listening to that. And he doesn't have to be hands-on. He doesn't have to be seen to be interfering with. And I think, again, on the back of some of the things Howe's done, in his time away from the game when he was between jobs, he's looking at how, some of the clubs in the States in particular use former players, particularly some of the baseball clubs, in ambassadorial roles and in inspirational roles, and keeping the fans inspired as well. And they use them very, very well and play on really relatively short histories very, very strongly, And I think anybody who has grown up watching football have had their head in a bucket if they don't know who Keegan is and what Keegan brought to the Premier League with our team. And so it would make perfect sense, particularly in certain situations, if we're going into bigger games, to have that kind of positivity bouncing around the room.
Mitch, can I just add there, he'd also be very, very popular and very well known with the powers that be in Saudi Arabia as well. Because they're all of an age where, you know, they would have been brought up in the entertainers as well. Not even some Keegan as a player.
But the older ones as well older ones as well in this region, bearing in mind how long Liverpool Football Club have been coming to this region and making links in this region. The older ones as well know Kevin Keegan. If it's not necessarily associated with Newcastle United, it will be from that too. And I think that's a fantastic card to play. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Great stuff, lads. Great hour. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to the mods for taking care of the chat. Thanks to Paul Gallant for coming on. He's always in there pushing the show. Thank you very much, my friend. And thanks to everybody, of course, who subscribed to the show. I'm back tomorrow night. We've given it a new title because Joe's got his own show these days, as you all know. It's called The Monday Club. We'll be looking at transfers, of course, in the transfer window and looking back at the weekend's events. But the Monday Club, Monday night with Joe Walker, 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Make sure you set a reminder and join us for a bit of NUFC matters. Then, Mitch, Stu, see you guys on Wednesday night. Enjoy the rest of your night in Tenerife, Stu.
Cheers, pal. See you Wednesday.
Take care, lads.